All right. Immediately with the text.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not, I was just saying this, but I'm not happy that we put 9/11 footage in it anymore. I used to think when I was like, because we came up with this idea when we were like 19. I used to think that putting 9/11 in it was going to have help like derive some sense of like gravitas and like profundity to the story, but it really has like literally no impact like that now. I mean,
Yeah.
because the rest of the film has no contextual it's not even about that.
Yeah. And
So pretty much all I did,
this
yeah,
opening
go
went through
ahead.
so many variations too. Like
Yeah,
there was another very serious phone call at one point that was gonna open the story, and I think the first cut of just the opening got to be 8 or 9 minutes, if not
yeah,
longer. So
uh,
as it kind of took shape, I'm sure we'll talk about how this was almost a three-part episode. This is almost so many
yeah.
different things that it was just kind of interesting to see this opening develop. Watching all the different cuts that Heath made of this opening sequence, and like overall, like I'm in agreement. It's definitely not the way we should have opened it, but it's
Mm.
just very
It fetishizes pain and suffering and tries to use it as like a catalyst to make the story have more weight to it. And really, I could have found a million other ways to do that. And I've seen a lot of comments that are like, "You're a fucking sicko. Like, why would you use it?" And I don't have a defense to it. I
yeah.
think it was kind of messed up that I used it, and but then again, I was like 19 years old. So, I mean, for me, like, with like my misguided, like, post high school
Yeah.
angsty ass self, I was
Yeah.
like, no, this is going to be important. I'm going to make an important movie. What's important? 9/11. So I just, and I wish I could have convinced myself to get out of that by the time that the film came out. And I already had my own problems with it by the time the film was coming out, but it was also like it was just kind of an integral part of the way the film opened.
Yeah. And the
And like,
production cycle is
yeah,
just so long, especially given like our ages when we started this, because we started making Nascent Nation back in like it was like 2016, 2015.
yeah, 2015. It
2015.
was while I was making schoolwork.
Yeah, and we like there were so many different things that happened in our lives during the production,
Yeah,
and just that time period in and of itself. We went from like 19 to 21, 22, I think, while we were making it,
yeah,
and just in general, so much happens during that time frame, and to make a movie during it, I don't regret it at all. But it was just
no,
it's very interesting because by the end of it, before it even came out, there were parts we did at the beginning we wanted to go back and like change and
yeah.
just
I
because of
mean,
how we filmed it, we got
yeah,
to a lot towards the third act. So
yeah. There's like a lot of things that we just, you know, you grow up creatively throughout the entire thing, and I mean, like, I don't regret it because I really became a much better like person, not just director or whatever, a storyteller, like any arbitrary crap like that, but I'm just a better person now. Like I
yeah,
feel more passionate, more responsible, more driven. Like the entire experience like really like kind of lifted me up into a new way of thinking, And all I have is like to show for all of the crap that I've been through is like this film and a few other things. And
yeah,
okay, with the John Williams music
yeah,
playing in the background, that just sounds. But I mean, like, really, like, without this thing, I don't know if I would be the same person.
right,
But that being said, like, I can't look back at it and say I'm totally on board with everything that we did. I mean, there's some things that I'm just like, yeah, well, that's 19-year-olds doing 19-year-old things.
right.
So,
It is such a mixed bag, and then as you go on, just because of the way we had to film and the extensive rewrites we had to do, the end of the film really did take place like 2 years after the beginning.
yeah,
So it's just weird to see the change in approach and like
yeah.
how we handled it versus this opening here with
David
Francis, yeah,
Sisson.
David Sisson.
Yeah.
This was just
The,
recorded on Heath's cell phone. Just fun
the,
tidbit there.
yeah. The crazy stuff, man, it looks like. Because I've never seen a fan film that has, like. This is not me blowing smoke up my own ass. I've never seen a fan film that has that kind of acting that we have. And maybe some of the acting can be weak every now and then. It's usually not really anybody in the main cast.
Yeah.
Part of it might be because I just didn't know really how to direct people to that extent. I'd always ever used friends and family, and I was kind of acclimated to poor acting, you know.
Right.
But when we finished writing the film, we kept looking at it, and we were like, okay, well, we got the movie. Now we have to find people that'll do the movie with us, and
Yeah.
we couldn't because it was all just like friends and family that weren't really fitting the bill. And but we were completely content with just using them, and then somebody brought up to me that I should probably do a casting call on Facebook. So my friend Tatum Spearman did a casting call for me on her pages, and we got like 300 responses. And I remember like it happened all in like
Yeah.
2 days. And so like me and Mikey just meet up at a Starbucks, and we're like, "What the fuck is happening?" And we're like looking through his Mac, like
Yeah.
looking through all these like
Cobbled together a
auditions.
casting list and just
Yeah, it was
threw it together.
ridiculous. Like we were making a list of people that like submitted that we could potentially have send in auditions, and we felt like legit. It was really weird.
It was so nuts because I was working second shift at a food service job, and then I remember getting
Yeah,
off, checking my phone, and going, "All right, I'm not sleeping," and just
yeah,
going home, putting together a list. The next day,
yeah,
driving over to where Heath was living at the time, and just
yeah,
meeting up and just trying to handle it. I think that's when it really started to feel like a film production and less like a home movie.
yeah. Well, and it definitely does feel like a film for better, like for the most part. I mean,
Yeah,
except for the fact when you know the details that we know, like that drone shot that you saw at the beginning, we almost got arrested for that.
it's one of my
'Cause we
favorite
were,
stories to tell.
yeah, we were on somebody else's property, and we were using a Phantom, like whatever, I can't remember the name of it, but like we were using my buddy Brendan Ferguson's drone, and he was doing all the drone shots for the film. And this old woman like comes out from her house, and she's like, you know, y'all don't really have permission to be here. We could be calling the cops. Like she's got her dog out there.
Yeah,
She's got her dog.
like not like she's ex-military or something. I don't even
Yeah,
remember what.
yeah. And she was saying that like the owner of the property that we were on could shoot us if he wanted to, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, so
Oh man, that was quite
yeah,
insane. But I mean, so much of this had to be filmed guerrilla style just because of
yeah,
logistics. Even though when I was doing the script, we had so many conversations about what can be done
yeah.
because it was just so important to remember that we're working with no budget and just
Mm-hmm.
like a little handheld DSLR and just some mics and like most of the microphones we just ended up getting because of Kenny Barr, the man
Yeah,
over here who plays Matthew. Um, and it was just such a like a haphazard cobbled together sort of setup that a lot of the stuff we just kind of ended up doing at one point towards the end. I'll point it out when we get there. One of the crowd members is just a guy, like just a guy walking past that
yeah,
we had he was like want to be in a movie, and then most people get really excited when they hear that.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. You can't thank Kenny Barr enough for anything, though.
absolutely not. Kenny is the reason
God.
this is happening, just
Yeah,
for future reference for
yeah.
posterity.
If we ever just start sucking his dick on this commentary, it's because he deserves it. He really just kind of he read the script, and I think he got really emotional reading it because it resonated with him. I think because of the whole father son relationship, and
Yeah,
I went over to Jesse Shemeka's house, and we sat up in the attic, and like, or not the attic, but I mean, he basically lived in an attic. He had a rented out apartment over in Noonan, and he and I met me and Kenny for the first time, and we just kind of like went over the story and like went over the script, and then David Sisson showed up because we ended up finding his audition to be really good for Francis, and
yeah,
like it blew me away. His audition blew me away, but um, yeah, he was just like, this is one of the best scripts I've ever read. Like, you know, like really, really interested in it, like super passionate about it. And that never like wavered like the entire time. Like, I don't think there was ever, I mean, he got tired of it every now and then because he just wanted to see it, but it wasn't because he hated the process. It was because he was so excited to see it.
yeah.
You know, we didn't really have anybody else doing that for us. I mean, like, just look at this,
Oh, this
like
shot, yeah,
this whole shot like we did 37 times, and
yeah.
nobody like said anything. Nobody complained or anything. Like, we couldn't have asked for people that would have just been, we had like no divas except for like, but I'm just saying.
There was a long production. There was a bit of everything,
Yeah.
but this is one of the
Yeah.
few things where we had permission to film in here. I can't remember
Yeah.
the city specifically because we filmed all over Georgia for this.
Yeah, it was Noonan.
This was
I
Noonan?
think so.
I don't even. I feel like this wasn't Noonan. I don't even know.
We used two different
Because
courthouses.
Yeah, and this is the courthouse that had I think the coffee shop nearby or the corner store that shows up later on in the film.
I want to bring up something real quick on the bottom right of the screen. That's the script.
Yeah. And I remember being like, are we gonna cut around that?
I wanted to put something in front of it, like I wanted to like add a plant or something, but I was so ready to get it out, I completely forgot about the small things like that.
This whole shot too, we had like no time, so there was just this is the coverage for that shot. Like that was just the reality.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do another shot, but like, I was just kind of lost in how I could do it because close-ups weren't gonna like the thing is with this is like you can only like do so many setups and like do so many angles before you completely like just remove the flavor from a scene. Like you have to stick to your guns sometimes and go, no, I'm gonna shoot this all in a wide, and if it doesn't play out perfectly, it's probably because of your direction, because you probably didn't give them enough to work with blocking, you didn't give them enough to work with in pacing, like like if you just give people an angle and then make them improv, and like, I mean, this is like the second take because the first take had a technical issue. Like we literally just had to go. Like she's stuffing her lav mic cord.
Yeah, that's my phone, and she's recording the mic, and she's using it as a phone. So
yeah, this is one of the last things we shot too. It was a pickup.
Back over in Sonoya, because like half the house is in Sonoya, and the exteriors in this are in Sonoya, and then the interior of the house is North Georgia. I can't even remember the city at this point.
Sonoya.
No, the interiors.
Of this house?
Not this house.
This is at Curry's house.
No, the other house.
Oh, Cartersville.
Cartersville, yeah.
Yeah, we went to Cartersville, and it was always cold as fuck. It was like right by LJ, I thought.
Yeah.
Fucking forgot my tripod up there.
Ooh.
You don't remember that?
I do. Yeah,
at her
I
house.
do.
Yeah.
That was
and then I had to shoot. I had to shoot like a quarter of the film handheld because I forgot my tripod up there, and I was about to drive 3.5 hours for a tripod.
Yeah, and I think at the time we were all justifying it, like, oh no, it works. This is the film needs to be handheld.
Yeah.
Just because we really had to work with what we had. Like, if there's anything to take away from this, it's like we got it done, but like by any means necessary.
Yeah. I think this whole scene was just because, or was shot like at the time it was because Kenny was so ready to keep going and keep moving and like pressing on with the production that like it was just me and him one day at his house, and he was like, well, I can go put my shirt on and we can go find a scene that I'm not with anybody else with, and we shoot that scene. I was like, okay, Kenny. So we did that. And then like this scene, we reshot Elijah's coverage like 3 times.
So there's several months in between these two.
Yeah, they're not even in the same car. If you look at the dashboards and rearview mirrors, they're not even the same model. But like, I was able to sort of convince you that it was.
I think it plays out fine.
Elijah had longer hair when we first started the film. If you've seen the trailers, you'd see that. Or the first trailer.
The original coverage and all that, yeah.
Yeah, so when he cut his hair, it was already hard enough getting those scenes shot to begin with. Just getting everybody together and everything like that. So when he cut his hair, you can even see his long hair in that shot if you look in that car. But I tried to darken it to the best of my ability, but I mean, I wasn't mad at him.
Yeah.
But I was a little hopeless,
There's just so many things you have to account for, because with Elijah and Kenny, a couple of the other actors, like, they would change up what they looked like just because they had other productions. You just had to find a way around that. That's why, the costuming for Elijah's character is a hat and a hoodie.
Yeah,
just to keep
make it as
things.
basic as possible because I
Yeah,
mean Elijah isn't just like some third-rate nobody. I mean he's been in like some legitimate productions. He's been
yeah,
on The Walking Dead and everything. And he was Corey Feldman in a movie for a Lifetime. Was it a Lifetime
yeah.
movie? I don't know.
I think it was.
But yeah, I mean like he played fucking Corey Feldman. He met the guy. I mean
Yeah,
like he's an actual actor.
yeah. You just have to work around these things.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the day before. I know we're on the next sequence now, but the day before, or there, no, the day of shooting, I had to just run into a Target and find a hoodie because we didn't have a hoodie in time. I think Heath called me. He's like, "Mike, get a hoodie. We need
Yeah.
to film now." So
Yeah.
it was
And
quite an
I remember
adventure.
when we lost his hoodie one time and we had to go to a Walmart and buy a new hoodie.
Oh yeah,
Briefly, it was like a darker gray, but we were like, "Fuck it, it'll work.
we
I
have to.
promise."
Yeah,
Oh, that little girl was so sweet. I don't think you were here for that day.
I wasn't here for
I
this.
think I just, yeah. No, Shakira was so nice and her daughter was adorable. I just didn't know how to like direct kids, so she kind of had to do it for me. But like, I actually really enjoyed Shakira's acting because I thought it was going to be over the top because that's just generally what you get with local actors. But she was like totally subdued. Like you could see the disdain in her eyes, but she wasn't like snarling too much. You know what I mean?
This is definitely one of those scenes. I remember when I was writing this one, I was like, "Can we film it?" Which is just
Yeah.
always a question that comes up because,
Yeah,
especially
and
public
Kenny was able
locations.
to make it work.
Yeah,
Kenny was able to make it work. He just found a guy over somewhere and just
yeah.
and was just like, "Hey, I got us a diner,
I,
and they'll let us shoot here." And I was just
yeah.
like, "What the hell?
I really wish I
Like,
could
how
remember
did
the
we do
name of
that?"
it though, because this has just really good diner, like just
Yeah,
good
it was
food
good
here.
food. It was
So
really good food.
yeah,
And
just
And Kenny paid for it, and he didn't have to do that. Like that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like Kenny just went out of his way all the time for us, and like it wasn't just the film. I mean, those two people there were just random people that wanted to be in the movie. Like, you know, the owner was behind the register just then. I mean, like he was able to convince all these people, and it transcended the love for the script. I think he just started to believe in us as people and wanted us to succeed. And like that sort of makes me feel guilty in a way that I haven't been pushing to make more content lately
right.
because you know, I mean, because he put so much stock into us, and I've been kind of abandoning that lately. And I don't know. I mean, this whole house, every set we ever got, everything was just because of him. He became like our executive producer, and we could
Yeah.
always trust him to do anything. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was such an ordeal too that immediately after making it, like I think a lot of us just took a second to breathe. I don't think me and Heath even were in contact for like a month afterwards.
Yeah,
Not because
yeah,
of anything bad, but just because it was just
yeah,
so intensive to make this that
yeah.
kind of needed to breathe out. But
There was something that happened in this scene. The first time they tried to do it, it didn't really work.
yeah,
I mean, we didn't like reshoot it or anything, but like the first time we shot the scene, like they weren't like getting it. And then they took a second, took like 10 minutes, talked about it a little bit, and then like they all kind of like went in separate rooms and then they came back. Or, well, Elijah went in a separate room and came back, and then like they came back and then they just like fucking nailed it.
yeah,
And it like, I, after seeing Kenny's performance in this and Elijah's performance in this, I literally can't see anybody else playing Matthew because the person that was supposed to portray Matthew was supposed to be like this, like, just regular, like, black, short hair, Super 8 dad.
yeah,
And then like Kenny shows up and he's radically different from the visualization of Matthew, but he's got the temperament that would justify this kind of confrontation. You know what I mean?
yeah. It was, yeah. That whole,
Elijah's so good.
yeah,
Ugh.
that whole sequence to watch and to,
It was so
yeah,
organic, dude.
and that's always a
The
scene that
yeah,
really sticks out. And then this
I
next
know.
sequence, um,
The whole purpose of rape being kind of like the conflict, or like, or not really the conflict, but like the fact that this young girl got hurt in such a horrible way is because it's a quiet thing. It's something that, you know, we can't really talk about directly, and if we do talk about it directly, it's really uncomfortable, and it's something that, you know, if somebody in that position of power does to somebody so young and so like vulnerable, like it's not the same as like somebody getting murdered, you
yeah,
know, or something. It's something that they have to live with, and that takes a lot of strength. And so Superman's kind of here to instill that strength into everybody and to accept, help them accept that sometimes bad things kind of happen, but like we can still be reasonable, tolerant people. We can still talk to each other. Reprimand is on its way. It's just,
It's also
you know,
it's an ugly thing at that. Like the crime that kind of underlies with this film is like not pretty. Like there's so much that's
yeah,
a lot that's deliberately not black and white, not to infer that crime was not entirely abhorrent, but just some of the other approaches, specifically those of Matthew and Francis, that we kind of approached it. Or I remember I was approaching it like it was like the opposite of The Dark Knight. Like when you watch The Dark
mm-hmm,
Knight, it's like he can do the morally relative thing because that's what's right for the moment. It was trying to craft something in the opposite. And I know I've talked to a lot of people where they're like, oh, I completely disagree with how Superman handles this. Because it really does, for a time,
yeah,
make everything worse.
yeah,
And so it was really interesting to try to take a Superman that would come from like almost like that 90s or even before like that post 9/11 sort of blind
yeah.
nostalgia sort of thing before everything
It's
got all
just
dark and
hyper
gloomy.
romanticism. Yeah,
Yeah, hyper
everything is black and
romanticism.
white for him, but he doesn't live in the real world because he doesn't. I mean, he's not necessarily real. He's an idea, kind
Yeah,
of like taking that in a way and materializing it and utilizing it and recognizing that these characters, the characters that you create around him and the world that you create around him can be hyper real, but like making a character as colorful as Superman and trying to turn him into like, you know, a oil rig worker or something would not really. I'm not saying he
yeah,
was working on the oil rig, but I'm just saying like, you
yeah.
know,
Like we didn't want to bend Superman into hyper realism,
yeah, we
so
wanted to
he sticks
keep
out.
him what he was, accept what he
Yeah,
was, and try really hard to have integrity with that. And that's why, like, went through a million designs on the suit. I spent like $750 on that suit. This guy in Duluth made it for us, and he's made tons of custom Superman suits, and I loved it. But I made that design myself. Like every
yeah,
single portion of it, I made for myself by myself. And I mean, I wanted to stay away from textures on the suit. Like I didn't want like a honeycomb texture, like a chainmail texture from Man of Steel, because I felt like it was kind of busy, and I feel like when you put like a bunch of highly busy textures on a suit, it can make it really busy and like tacky over time. Like I think the Man of Steel suit is gorgeous, but I also think it might date itself in like 30 years,
yeah,
and I think it's probably gonna look really tacky. Like they're gonna be like, why is all this stuff going on with it?
yeah,
So I wanted to keep like a straight colored texture, like just a solid, just lycra suit that was form fitting because I felt like it was better to just let his uh physique. I can't
yeah.
talk.
Kind of hold its own without all
Yeah,
the padding and
yeah,
all that.
yeah. I didn't.
And
Yeah,
and Brett
sorry.
Owens is just
He's
Superman. So
fucking jacked.
he's
Yeah.
he's a massive man.
He
Um,
was the first person that said yes to everything, anyways, and I need to bring that up. I mean, I sent him like a few messages before we even had a script, and I was like, "Look, you're perfect for Superman. Like, I really want you in this." And I think he got really emotional at first, and as it kind of started to shape, you could tell he was just getting more and more hyped about it. But he'd never really had that much acting experience prior. So when we would do like little like readings and stuff with Kenny and all that, um, it was pretty obvious like the massive like divide in experience, at least at the very least, but not talent, because Brett started picking it up. And there was one day in Kenny's backyard where we were just sitting on the porch talking, and they went through one of the main scenes where they have a confrontation, and they just, I mean, Brett started picking it up slowly, and there was something that Kenny was saying to him that was clicking in his head, and he was like, "Convince yourself before you try to convince me."
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, by like the end of this, Brett was a competent actor, like a truly competent actor. It was really, really cool,
watching
to
that
see that
happen.
transformation.
Yeah, like over the course of production, seeing what Brett brought to the table. And I remember that day, like standing in Kenny's backyard, just kind of going through it, rehearsing it. And that was like early on when I don't know if we were entirely convinced ourselves that we could do this. It's just so cool to see that
Mm-hmm.
transition between where it was and where it ended up being. I
Yeah.
think we said that multiple times towards the end. Like, this should not look like this. This
Yeah, I
this
know.
should not even exist hardly.
Yeah, the sets shouldn't be as nice as they are. The extras shouldn't even be in it. We shouldn't have a plot that can.
Mostly stand on its own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fan film, but
Yeah.
it's really not. By the end of it, it's totally not because that's probably one of the last scenes you have with Superman, and then you know, and again,
Is
we
it time to talk about that? I know. I've read the
what?
comments. I think
Uh,
addressing the amount of Superman is probably important at a certain point.
um, yeah, I suppose if you want to kind of
Well,
talk on it, and then I'll
yeah,
bounce off at you.
I don't really. I don't. I guess I don't have too much to say on the matter. I think just based on the things we've already said earlier about how we're trying to balance out Superman with a very hyper realistic world involves showing you the hyper realistic world, and at the same time, Superman is one of those entities that really needed, like, he has to work off the conflict. Just him by
Hmm.
himself wasn't something we were going to have, so we have to develop the conflict and then introduce Superman to the conflict. So approaching it in this manner, I think really highlighted the what we were going for in terms of like theme versus like what it was. Like, I remember when we were starting it, it was like, how do we approach this? Because Superman doesn't punch anyone. Superman doesn't have to get in a fight because there's no completely morally abhorrent person in the story. Well, there is, but towards the end, the conflict in the end does not involve like
Yeah.
really
And
good guys or
we
bad
don't ever
guys.
humanize that person by showing him because we felt like, I mean, for a minute there I was going to show the sheriff Phillips, but
Yeah.
the reason why we didn't was because if we gave him a face, it was like in the most mildest of sense, as much as this can make sense, it justified him a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. Like
Yeah.
maybe I'm probably not using the right words, but like I don't know. I tried to stay away from that, and
I
I
mean, it's a
really,
tricky topic. We had to be
yeah,
very like, there were so many rewrites just on that basis, and I still don't think we
yeah.
got it all right.
Well, and that's
But
partly because we couldn't make it longer because it was so hard to make to begin with that we had to shave off like 3 scenes that really worked and really helped like highlight some of these arguments and like conflicts and stuff like that. So it really does kind of feel like it's vignettes just like paced together, and there's a reason for that. It's because we really just couldn't, it was just,
yeah,
I'm at a loss for words because the thing with like the lack of Superman too is it was a deliberate decision. It wasn't something that we just like
yeah, I feel
had
like
an
that's
oversight
clear.
with. Like it should be, but if people have to ask about it, somewhat it feels like they either missed the point or they think that we missed the point.
Yeah,
And the thing is that I don't think we missed the point. And with everything else that we've done in this film, I don't think we missed the point. This is a very interpersonal conflict with entirely different new characters that have fleshed out understandings of the world around them. You have enough time with them to get to know them, to build somewhat of a relationship or connection with them. And
and you have preconceived notions of Superman. You don't with any of
yeah,
these characters.
exactly. And so Superman has that presence with him that's just kind of like almost preordained. Like when you see Superman, there's supposed to be a level of importance behind it, and like I wanted to use that sparingly. I didn't want to just drip feed Superman into every single scene so that we could add some relevance to it. Like I wanted these characters to have some kind of backbone for themselves to stand on.
Yeah,
And yeah, but this scene in particular, this was David Sisson's audition. Um,
yeah,
and I just remember me and you watching because it was like shot on a phone behind a green screen, and we just were watching it and we were like, "What the fuck?" Because like he really like drew you in, you know?
yeah. And this is the first scene ever
that we
shot.
ever
for
shot.
this.
Yeah.
You can still see the lamp just on the bed, just behind
Yeah.
Sisson's shoulder.
Yeah, there's a lamp to create a backlight on his hair so that he doesn't blend into the background too much. And I wanted to hide it, but
this
it would have
is,
taken too long
to me, this conversation, I'm glad we shot it first because it really kind of is the crux of everything. And
Yeah.
it's also one of those scenes to where, like you were talking about earlier with Superman and his lack of appearance in the story, you have to feel these stakes and understand them and almost agree with the characters before Superman comes in and kind of upends that.
Yeah.
But you have to see where they're coming from because a lot of the first half of Act 3, when you have Superman confronting Kenny, because you have to think about it for yourself about whether or not the action taken by Kenny or Matthew or the action taken by Superman, like which one in your opinion is right, because Kenny's action reflects the actions of someone living in this hyper-realistic world, and Superman's reflects somebody that's almost hopelessly romantic about justice and truth and all that. So I know personally writing it, I mentally almost always sided with Matthew's argument, and most of my friends that I've shown this to also do, and I actually really enjoy that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I really do hope that a couple of people watched that scene that we're going to get to a little bit later on and went, actually, no, I'm not with Superman on this one, because it really is not clear, which was, I think that's one of the two or three things like I could just point out that I'm most proud of, I think, in this. Those sequences and kind of what was going on behind them, because I don't think that's really anything we saw much in current iterations of Superman, which of course influenced this. Like, we can't not say that, Man of Steel and the DC Cinematic Universe didn't at least have an influence, whether good or bad, on the portrayal of these characters. So
just let it be over.
Yeah. On an unrelated note to some degree, the primary reason why we couldn't add more meat to the story and build it up a little bit more was because our actors moved to different states like halfway through. Like, Elijah wasn't really in the third act because he couldn't be. He lived in LA at that point. And Kenny was moving to LA in a month near the end of the film. Like, he really had no time left. We had no time left, and so that's partly why,
Act
things
3
rushed
is
the way they were.
very different.
At least he should be.
I remember because that whole sequence was.
One sec.
Yeah.
This shot, just so anybody is wondering, the exterior shot of the house, that was actually a day shot, and I completely turned that into a night shot. Like, it was a day for night. I added like grass moving and everything, gnats. I gotta tell you, still like the best day for night conversion I've ever done. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, everything from this point on really is kind of what we called Act 3, and it was rewritten maybe 14 times. I can't remember the specific number
because we had to get it shot and we had to make it reasonable, but we also had to make sure that we weren't losing like integrity in the story.
Because there's a convergence of everyone at the end at the courthouse at different locations within the courthouse, so you have sub-locations going on. And as a writer, I really wanted to give everyone available a chance to resolve their character arcs all simultaneously.
Yeah.
And Heath would call me up and be like, this actor can't be there. This actor can be there. No, this actor actually can't be there. And so it'd be like, okay, I can't resolve that arc. I got to throw this arc in here. I got to do this.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I just remember like just days where it was like, okay, I have an hour to just completely redo this. And it's a crazy, it's a big ending, and getting it on screen was such an ordeal. But we got it done.
Yeah, we got it done. That's the important part. I don't really care if it's perfect or not. It exists. Like, that's so, to all of us involved, that is so important that this thing exists. Because we all read the original script and we said, this deserves to exist, and now it does. Whether or not it's exactly what we had in mind doesn't really matter. because now we can show people what was in our heads when we were 19.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a lot of these scenes. Like, I mean, just the seal behind Kenny, the Smallville seal. Kenny just randomly got one of those. I
Yeah.
think he got it for free from another like place, and like that flag was taped onto the wall, and I think one of us was holding on to it. I don't know, but
It was nuts.
yeah, I mean, it's just as bare bones as it gets, but I think I appreciate smaller movies like that now. I mean, I already appreciated independent films anyways, but now I kind of like, in a lot of ways, I abhor a lot of blockbuster films because they don't have to work through things quite as much. They can do anything they want. And so a lot of like indiscrepancies with like the narrative like fall through, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of just on a tangent right now, but
That's all right.
I'm also kind of watching the movie now, and I probably shouldn't be because it's making it harder for me to focus. But
What's funny about this is Francis, the character's like second or third monologue. Like this part of the script was really monologue heavy. I remember.
yeah, he's just reading his script on the
Yeah.
podium, but it worked.
But
So,
it ended up working out. But it was just kind of funny because I think if you take Sisson's screen time, you break it down, it's like 70% monologues.
yeah, he
But,
doesn't have a single like conversation where it's not like 20 paragraphs.
And this was one of those things to where, since we were limited by time, we couldn't make like a 3-hour movie. And we also had a thing where we just couldn't get to film with him all that much, so we had to
Yeah.
cut out a lot of what he was already in.
Yeah, he got in a car accident while he was filming this. So
But so it had to get cut down to just every single scene sets up or pays off something with him. It was just all right. Everything with him has to be incredibly conservative, like, which is why, of course, I gave him 2-page long monologues.
yeah, the fact that everyone did this for basically nothing.
Yeah,
It just, you know, I'm just watching it just in disbelief that like everybody was like, yeah, I'll do that for free. You know, there's only 3 people in that room, or well, like 6 people in that room, and 3 of them are extras, or something like that. I don't know.
there's the
But,
2
like,
reporters, and then I think I'm thrown in there. Yep, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And if
yeah,
you get,
and we were trying to make
yeah.
it look like a full room. God.
This music cue too.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Yeah, the only reason we didn't have an original score was because it was just kind of getting to that point where we couldn't nail it on the head exactly how we wanted.
Yeah.
We tried like 3 different types of people.
at one
even
point I
Mikey
was
gonna
running
do
through it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just couldn't get the feeling that we wanted until I realized that John Williams' score was just probably the best for it. It's not like it's not like I hate the people that were working on the music prior.
Hey, what's up?
But it just wasn't working at all, and I couldn't, on top of that, like the story wasn't something I necessarily agreed with all that much anymore. So also, this is the second time that we did this take. Like, this is, or no, I think this is actually the first take, and then we took
Yeah.
like 2 more.
Yeah,
They
but we just
literally
ran with
didn't. It's like they don't even have to try at all.
Yes, what did you do? God.
There's a cut right there. Yep, that's the 3rd take when the camera's moving. But something about the music to me.
What is it?
Yeah, obviously it's John Williams, so it's highly
Yeah. Good.
well done. Yeah, it's amazing. But another thing is I could get away with it because it's a fan film. And secondly, when you have a world that is dealing with such a heavy topic, having a wondrous, whimsical score underneath it that contrasts that can really keep you from diving knee deep or neck deep into, some
Total-
really just, apathy. Like, we needed John Williams' score in there. Or it would have just been a slugfest, and it would have been really lethargic, and you would have just felt horrible the entire time.
Yeah, I remember the score I was working with. I actually was going through it the other day. Um, it was
Wait.
very like The Last of Us, just like acoustic
Yeah.
guitar noodlings, and
Yeah.
while I still think it sounds okay, at the end of the day, it wasn't really gonna work for this because
Yeah.
this had to be like he said, like the score has to help lift you up from the fact that this is just it's a downer. Like it's just
Yeah.
kind of a downer. So
Yeah.
and then
And by the end of
those-
this, we both also kind of decided we didn't really want to make movies like this anymore. We didn't want to make another sad movie, you know?
yeah.
So it's just kind of like,
Even though like at the end of the day I don't see this as a sad movie, it has to be sad for most of it.
well,
just
you
to
know what I
pay
mean.
off. Yeah. And it is draining to make.
Yeah.
Like when you watch your favorite like sad Oscar movies, like you have to wonder, they have any fun making this?
Yeah. I know.
So-
That's the thing. Like, you see something like Spotlight, and I'm like, God, dude, that's like pulling needles out of your foot the entire time. Like, you're just constantly like in a state of despair, so that you can do some sort of like material justice, and
Yeah.
it's just. I'm sure there's like here and there like little like chatter that makes it a lot more fun. Like the people make it fun, but I just want to have fun while I'm making something fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my head is at now, and I don't necessarily care if it's like Oscar worthy. I just don't want to hate myself the entire time I'm making something, because my mindset is very connected to these things. If I'm making something that's sad, I will spend those 3 years kind of miserable, you know?
Yeah.
Not because I hate what I'm making, but because what I'm making is about rape, and I just don't want to do that again, because it doesn't say anything necessarily unique enough to justify me being so miserable the entire time throughout the process.
Yeah.
Even though it was amazing that we had all these people and look at these performances, you know what I mean? Look at this tension, like look at this location, like look at those wardrobes. It's great, but you know, I can't do that every time. So
You want me to confess?
It kind of is. I feel like this is gonna sound very narcissistic, I suppose, but it kind of really is just its own singular thing. Like I wouldn't
yeah,
approach it the same way. It exists because of the way Heath and I were and other people were in 2015 to like 2018, and
Yeah.
those people don't really exist anymore.
yeah,
So it's just very interesting to watch. It's like it kind of feels like
It's
watching
like a
yourself grow
piece
up.
of
And
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I'm not even in it, but I can see myself growing up the entire time, even through the way I shoot these things. If you haven't noticed, like the way it's been shot up until like 10 minutes ago is completely different now.
Yeah. What's
You know?
funny is like I can literally see myself grow up in this because I appear twice. I'm in the reporter scene. I'm the middle reporter, and then
Yeah.
I'm later on with like a beanie and a full out beard and long shaggy hair. So it's like
Yeah.
you can see the complete transition of time if you watch
Yeah.
the background close enough.
No, like I was just asking.
We lucked out because you don't see it with our actors because Kenny is bald and Elijah has a hat on the whole time. So
It's hard to hear that.
Oh god. Yeah, Kenny's not too hard to make work. I mean, he was a little heavier set by the beginning, though. He leans out by the end of this for
Yeah.
sure. But
I'm glad
Man.
we didn't have to worry about that or like I don't know
yeah,
Kenny going through a crazy change because
going
I don't know
through a
how we were
midlife
gonna
crisis,
do that.
getting a new tattoo.
Oh man,
You know. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like, it's really weird because this relationship between Elijah and Kenny does feel real. And I appreciate that so much because it's really what the film is about. It has nothing to do with Superman. It has everything to do with like this broken American home between a father and a son. You don't know where the mother is. Like it's never touched on. She could be dead. She could have left him. He could.
Kenny got mad at me about that. I remember he
yeah,
called me.
but-
He's like, "Where is the mother?" And I'm like, "That's not
Yeah.
the point. You're asking the wrong question."
Yeah. I mean, is it nice to know? Yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't make a difference between their relationship. If I were to throw in that context for you, this scene would still be about two characters at odds with one another, staring in complete opposite directions, but still in the same frame.
I gotta go.
never making eye contact with each other the entire time, and yet they're so close to each other, and
Yeah.
you can tell that there's still a connection there because their figures overlap each other, but it's so hard for them to connect, and there's reasons for that, but giving the context to that kind of makes it harder for you to envision yourself in that situation and to connect yourself to that relationship, because we all have a relationship with someone like that to some degree.
Yeah.
And some of us have it with family, some don't, some are lucky enough not to, but
This whole scene, this was just called the baby pod scene,
yeah,
just entirely through production. And I wasn't here for this, but man, I remember seeing the first cut, being like, "All right, I see why you fought for this." Because there was early on, me and Heath were going back and forth on where this scene should be, if it should even be in there, and it really does give you a just enough for what you need to know about Superman. This is the only
yeah.
scene where we just follow him and only him.
The spaceship in this is actually made of like foam and Mountain Dew bottles and stuff like that. It was made by John Riddle, and we asked him to put it together for us, and he made it in like 2 days, and it was really cool. And what we did was we put baby powder all over it so that it felt like it was aged and had like dust. And we put baby powder on the drape. That drape that he just pulled off was actually the original material for his Superman cape that we were going to use until we ended up siding with this. So we just kind of gave it like this dirt texture. And I think the main reason why I love this scene so much is because you recognize how lonely this Superman is, but he's not conflicted. It's not like he has a conflict inside of him of, am I doing the right thing? He knows he's doing the right thing. He just knows that this world doesn't care for that thing anymore. He knows that this is a world that's a lot more complicated than he is, and more complicated than his understanding of it. And like, these are characters with situations that he can't fix. So he knows he's doing the right thing, but he also knows he's helpless to the reality of it. And everyone around him is dead. Everyone he's ever known is dead.
Yeah.
Those glasses were like from the 1950s. So.
This is kind of the start of that sequence we were talking about earlier, where everything kind of plays out in real time from here until kind of the epilogue. And this sequence, this was rewritten and rewritten.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of out of our scope, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of like what's being said.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think given our circumstances and our blind hubris for attempting it in the first place, I think it came out okay.
Yeah, for
that's
kids.
large part due to the acting.
Yeah, it is. Because we had adults. The great thing about it is that we had adults who understand these conflicts, helping us reach, those levels of emotion that we needed. Yeah, I mean, if we didn't have people that were more mature than us and had some recognition. I'm sorry, I just need a second because it was so cold while we were shooting these things.
Oh,
I think I was the only one shooting this too. I don't think you were here for this.
I wasn't here for this, but just everything involving the courthouse was freezing.
Yeah.
I think it was early, I think it was like March or something. I can't even remember the specific time.
I don't know.
Also, the time this movie takes place is completely vague.
Yeah.
So
probably takes place over the course of a few months or 2 weeks. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Because they're talking about like yearbooks, so like there's an implication that it's almost summer. But then everyone gets colder as the movie goes on.
Well, part of that is because I love when people wear jackets in film. But there were times where it was really... I mean, she's literally got a Christmas tree behind us. We couldn't do anything about this stuff. Like,
yeah, here we go. And then we launch into my over-reliance on question, answer for
it's okay.
dialogue.
I mean, I rely on a lot of techniques with this too, and honestly, I didn't really do that great of a job with some of it, and I think part of it was because of my limitations and lenses and like stuff like that. And actors and extras. I mean, you're looking at things that were all shot on like 4 different days, and they're just cutting between each other, and I had to make it all look like it was the same, and I don't even think I did that right. It was hard. Like, it was so hard, and we had to constantly rewrite things because of technical things that, like, I don't think I really could explain to anybody else. You know, I was trying to explain things, why things wouldn't work, and I just couldn't. Like, I would just be like, we just got to do this, because when I worked it out in my head, like the way color would interact with certain people or certain things, I just knew that black hoodie wouldn't work, but that character has to have a black hoodie, so therefore we can't have a black hoodie in this shot. And like, I couldn't explain it to anybody, and I wish I could, but like, it's really hard to articulate like small, minute technical things like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that sequence, just to add, that sequence of Curry looking out is filmed in Griffin when the courthouse is in Duluth.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And the inside of the courthouse, quote unquote, is just some random Russian church in Duluth, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's just a church. Like, that's the basement of a church. Next to it is like some like kids' room.
Yeah. It was funny because in order to build this up, it had to be. I don't know if it even had to be, but it was so intercut. Like, it was just moving back and forth. And I know this sequence here, when he mentions Alan, there was supposed to be an entire thing with Alan, and you just don't. Instead of having that, we have like Alan looking at the phone. LA. Yeah, because he was in LA at the time. There was gonna be a whole fight sequence and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to really. You'll probably have to explain the whole going up to the roof thing, but
oh man.
The main reason I'd say it had to be intercut is because up until this point, everybody's just kind of been talking, and we knew that to some degree, if we wanted to derive any tension at all, it had to be more than that, because we didn't have enough screen time to develop these like relationships to the max. Anyways, it's not like Manchester by the Sea, where like the entire film can kind of be resolved with one really uncomfortable conversation, you know?
Yeah.
This is a movie with a really fantastical character, so you kind of have to have some tension on a physical level, or it misses the mark entirely. I mean, but yeah, you can explain the roof thing if you want.
I mean, the roof thing was always difficult because it was like, how do we come up with a conflict that makes sense but doesn't just outright like utilize
slanderize the characters?
Slanderize the characters, especially the primary character here, Megan, who just, you don't want to completely tokenize someone. It was such a difficult balance to strike. We had so many different variations, I believe, on how we're gonna end it, but.
Well, because we were out of our scope, like you said, with this like understanding of this topic, and like, she was a sport about it. You could tell, like, Kayla Gibson, the girl that played Megan, was a sport about it. She was really sweet the whole time, but I also could kind of tell that she felt off about it, and I didn't know what it was. But now
we were a bunch of 19-year-old dudes trying to talk about rape. We had no idea what we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly, and like, I don't know. I mean, she did it the way we asked, and she did the best she could.
Yeah.
But I could tell that there were a few people that were like, I don't like the way you portrayed her. I don't like the way Superman came off to her. You know?
Yeah.
I like this scene a lot, but I can understand if somebody thinks it's preachy. I can, you know? And it's a really touchy situation, because this is a young girl that had something horrible happen to her. And the way that we resolve it is by having a young man, fly down from the sky, a young white male that's like, hugely handsome, like fly down from the sky and like fix everyone's problems. Yeah. And like that just inherently.
And I know we tried to undo that or undo that a little bit with how he's talking to her.
Yeah.
But like, it was also just, we kind of backed ourselves into a corner because of the way Superman's character is. And because of the way we decided to set up our entire story around this event. So, I mean, I would like to think that we didn't turn it around, but we got we hit a point that was probably the best for what we could do at the time. So it's hard for me
Yeah.
to be too harsh on
Upset
myself
with it,
on the
yeah.
approach, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think this is a cute little touching way to end the story too, or the scene at least. This whole scene after the fact though, it was like 30 degrees outside and there was just wind just everywhere. It was just, I mean, look at those trees. Everybody was freezing cold. They'd all been out there for like 3 hours, just going as hard as they could for us. And you can see Brett's little hard nipples poking through his suit because it was so freaking cold.
We had a giant blanket just off screen most of the time,
Yeah.
trying to keep
This-
Brett from not dying.
Yeah, this was actually Brett's like one scene that he was so worried about.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was probably just because he was going to be in front of all these people acting. Like, he had to really get out of his comfort zone. And I have to, like, really congratulate him for trying as hard as he did. But I also want to congratulate everyone else and thank them profusely. Everyone. Even people that, like, I have disagreements with from time to time. Everybody that came out today or that day and was an extra and just was selfless and just completely committed to just helping us make a movie, you know, like
Yeah.
it's just something I can't thank them enough for. And like, whether I talk to them again or never talk to them again or whatever it is, I can't thank them enough. Also, I love that shot, but anyways.
That really does end on kind of one of the best notes, I think.
Yeah.
Because this was
Well, and
another
it wasn't gonna end
redo.
like this either. I mean, was it?
No, not
I
at
think
all.
it was-
This
yeah.
this ending was written like a day or two before it was shot, just because there was originally going to
We
be a
didn't
lot
have
more.
Elijah.
Yeah, there was going to
Yeah.
be a lot more Elijah.
Not spending the night, text me.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, when we're filming this, we're like 2021, and we have a little more of a grip on
Yeah.
how to present the information a little bit better. And also the day was beautiful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this whole scene was probably the easiest to shoot in the entire film, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
honestly one of the best, and you can tell that we all developed really well because the image is cleaner, the composition is better, you know what I mean, the acting is confident, extremely confident.
Because these actors
I
have
mean-
been working together for well over a year at this point too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we all know each other at this point.
Yeah, and we're just ready to get it done, and we're all excited. And I mean, I think Brett and Kenny were both kind of sad because, in a way, Kenny was kind of hanging up a cape too. But like, Kenny was really sad. He was like, I don't know what to do with myself once we finished shooting Nascent Nation. And then he moved to LA and everything, started working on other things. But I remember when I finished Nascent Nation, and I made a rough cut, or it was like almost a final cut, and I sent it to him. He called me, and he was crying because it just meant so much to him to see it done. And I think I was so far removed from how it felt when it was finished in some ways.
Yeah.
And I think I've had a few moments where I've like broken down because I was just so happy that it was made, and I was so thankful for everything and everyone. But like, I think I also had those moments when we were shooting it. I think I was having those moments where I would just get in my car and I would just start crying because I'm just so like happy that it's even happening to begin with, and that people believe in us, you know, enough
Yeah.
to actually
There's
just invest all this time. Like,
Yeah, there's this image Heath took, I think, on the first day of shooting, where I'm just like watching playback, and I remember like I just had a moment with that.
yeah,
But like, it's hard not to get emotional when you really realize the gravity of what we ended up doing, because it I guess for everyone else, it's a little fan film. It's cool, I guess they tried, but
yeah,
when I watch this, this is mine and Heath's lives for
Yeah.
several years. Very important parts of our lives.
I completely agree.
So it's weird. It's hard to look at, and I'm sure that kind of probably came across as we were talking, but it's very hard to look at in a way of like, oh, this is the film. It's more so like a scrapbook or a
Yeah,
journal.
exactly. It's a scrapbook. I mean, its importance to us is immeasurable. I think in that way that we're not gonna like oversell it, but we also can't undersell how like it's just a piece of history now for us, and whether or not people in the Superman fan club enjoy it is kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways for us, because we were able to really,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
exists. Like, there's a lot of Superman fan films out there that just kind of follow the comics or try to like follow a narrative that's been done before, like, and if they're not trying to do that, they're still taking all these like really crazy characters from like, you know, like Doomsday's comics and stuff like that, and just throwing it out there. But this is like the first one that I've ever seen where it was just really about like just two people. I mean, I saw one before that. It was about like a drug addict or something like that. She was like trying to kill herself, and he talks to her. It's in a fan film, and it's pretty cool. But like, this is the first one with like, in my opinion, competent writing, competent acting, competent like cinematography, and I mean the editing could have been a little better on the audio side. But and I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's like to the level of like a legitimate production, but I mean,
We were relentlessly ambitious with it.
Yeah.
I'll say that. This
yeah,
was-
that's the best way to put it. Like,
and-
I didn't cut
yeah.
corners at all.
I mean, and of course, at times it's going to kind of fall under its own weight because we're 19-year-olds trying to tell like this huge
Yeah.
story with so much weight and bra and
Yeah.
whatever you may add. But I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to look back on because you can see what we were touching on. Like you can see the parts where we were just not mature enough to handle it, and then you could also
Yeah.
see the parts where we were after something, and we were after something
Yeah.
that I can understand and I respect. And I guess it's a weird sentence to say that I respect my and Heath's past selves.
Well, we're
But-
both really hard on ourselves anyways, so it's totally fair, I think, in
Yeah.
this situation. I mean, like, I don't respect a lot of the things I've done or said to people, and you know, in my whole life. Like, I don't. Like, there's a lot of situations where I just never, I don't know. I don't give myself enough credit, but I also give myself too much credit. Oh, gave myself too much credit when I was younger, but now it's like, I can look back at myself and really chastise my decisions. But with this one, like pretty much every decision in this, I can understand and I respect, you know, for the most part. I do have things I would do differently now, and I'm sure
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
people would shit on a lot of the things we've done, especially like the 9/11 stuff. But
Right.
I think I sent the film to my dad on Father's Day, or it came out like a few days after Father's Day.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. But yeah.
That was Nascent Nation.
Yeah, that was Nascent Nation. But all right, okay.
You want me
Thank
to-
you.
Yeah.
Yabba dabba dub.
Do I stop Audacity now?
I guess we'll just
All
stop.
right, we'll just end.